that waiting room and let us know if anybody else joins. Welcome to the March edition of the North Tabor Neighborhood Association meeting. I think I'll skip the formality of introductions. It looks like we probably all know each other here. Oh, here's a new person.
Oh, here's Ross.
Oh, it's Ross.
Yeah, good. Just in time, Ross. Welcome.
Howdy.
We're just getting started. So in the introduction phase, but I knew as soon as I said, let's get started, that's when people would start popping in.
Oh, there's Stephanie.
There's Stephanie.
Stephanie,
Welcome, Stephanie.
Awesome.
So why don't we go ahead and move on to the approval of the February minutes. It looks like there's a little bit of a discussion there. Are there any other changes that people want to discuss before somebody moves to approve those?
We will be too disruptive.
What were the changes?
I saw the title. I found the title. So I'm gonna put that in there. I updated the title. And does anybody want to give me like a small synopsis of what she talked about? So I could just put it in the minutes, or we just want to leave it as the presentation. This was the title of it. And
there's going to be a link to the posting in YouTube or whatever. I mean, you could put that in there.
okay, as soon as that's up, then send me the link. I'll put it in the minutes, and then Keith can post it, and then, or maybe we can even post it on the website, last presentation, and then the link, and I'll just update the minutes when that link comes out and go from there.
Okay, well, I'll move that we accept the minutes with that correction or addition when it's ready.
Okay.
Anyone want a second? Patty seconds. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the February minutes with the changes discussed. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. It being unanimous with the ayes.
Wait, I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
Oh, sorry, I
Yes.
forgot to ask if you're going to abstain. That's the most important one. The ayes still have it. February minutes are so approved. All right, moving on to the next topic, treasurer's report. Do we have a treasurer's report this month? And you're on mute, Patty.
Treasurer's report, same balance as last time. And I did get a note from Southeast Uplift that our $500 grant had been, or communications funds has been approved. And we need to just save receipts and submit them as we use that money. So for Stephanie and Jules, if we're going to use that for your newsletter or, whatever. But we have till the end of December to spend that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great job. All right, moving on to communications update. Do we have any communications updates?
Mostly regarding the newsletter. So I don't know, Jules, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Did everybody get it?
Yes, I got it. It was great.
Yes, it looks so good.
Awesome. I was curious I just popped in to check out the open rate and click rate. Really great. Yeah, so like over 53% opens. Only 13 clicks though, so that's good. I just got that initial newsletter done, and I got a landing page created for signups. The next thing that I need to do is create a welcome automation email. So once somebody signs up, they get a welcome, and I've already kind of put together an outline of the content for that. So if there's any feedback or, hey, you should include this or something like that, please let me know. The documents, I created a document folder on the shared area that says like newsletter on it. So those documents are in there. If you have any suggestions, go ahead and throw that in. I think so welcome automation happening. And then I think the next big thing is to, get people to sign up. and we can, there's a few ways we can do that. I'd really like to talk a little bit about like next door strategies in terms of how we can be a little bit more active there and, elicit some discussions and get some content from people, and as well as like broadcast and let people know that there's, a new newsletter that's coming out that's pretty awesome that they should check out. So, yeah, looking forward to having a deeper discussion about that.
Mhm.
Thank you,
We'll
Jules.
start our thing for this examiner right now, because we finally put it, if Kim's still doing it, put a little blurb in there saying, we have a new newsletter, sign up here.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think it's Kim still.
Yeah, last I
So
knew it
who would
was.
be telling her to do that, or contacting her? Or where are Kim and Lars?
It's usually been Robert writing it up and forwarding it to her.
Well, that was the case a couple of months ago, but yeah, I mean, I can do that again if I have to, but I don't know. Did they announce that they weren't going to make the meeting tonight?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay, well, yeah, if I need to write up something, I will. I'll get with Sarah afterwards just to make sure I've captured everything. Better she do it. Normally the deadline is like tomorrow. It's normally like the day after our meeting, so we'll have to take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should probably start an email thread with several of us that to try to get that coordinated.
Mhm.
Yeah, let
Do
me
we
know if
have,
I
anybody have
can-
her phone number? Could we give them a call or something? Maybe they just spaced it out somehow.
We're missing a few people, and it sort of just raises the issue of, should we be following up with some of our members we haven't seen for a while, like Sam, and see if they still want to be on the board or not.
Yeah, I was gonna bring the Sam thing up. I think
Yeah.
even though she said she wanted to be on the board, I mean, I don't think she is. I've texted her a couple times and have not gotten an information back.
Uh-huh.
Do we even have a quorum?
I thought we,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do. We have 7.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
We are 9.
so I know that, I just joined the board in the fall, and I don't know everyone who hasn't been coming to the meetings, but would it be appropriate for CJ or I to reach out to those folks, or does somebody else want to do that?
If Sarah, Sarah and I, maybe she can send me the complete list. I thought that there was somebody who maybe was going to join kind of midstream.
That's Ross.
It's Ross.
Okay,
Ross.
so that's good.
Yeah.
But like Sam hasn't been to meeting. Technically,
No.
somebody who misses 3 meetings, they're out automatically.
Yeah.
But I guess a courtesy, email or, hey, you want to bail for this year, no hard feelings. We need to determine that, because if she's still on the books, then that makes it harder for us to get a quorum each time if she's never there. Or
Yeah.
There's Linda.
Okay, so-
Informally, I saw Sam a few weeks ago and asked her what her status was, and she's kind of sounded like she was going to, intends to come back eventually, but when. So I think it's probably safe to, I mean, we can certainly email her, but it's probably safe to say that she's not on it this year.
I agree.
Okay, well,
maybe we-
let's get at that in the minutes somehow, so that we we know, and nobody accuses us of doing something terrible,
Hang on a second.
But before we just totally leave the newsletter, I just want to sing Jules' praises some more, because it feels so good to have a visible presence. It's sparky. It feels like we exist.
Yeah, it's good.
And I was just even wondering if each of us should send 5 emails to Jules, or wherever the mailing list is kept, what's the best way to do that? But if we each at least did that, look, we'd add 50 more names or something.
You mean we all get 5 names from our neighbors and
Yeah.
send them in.
Say,
Oh,
would
that's
you
a
like
good
to get the
idea.
newsletter for your neighborhood association?
That's a great
um,
idea.
Yeah.
Just, we got to build that list, and that would be just a starter point, but we
Yeah.
each must have 5 friends in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
If you happen to
Great idea.
have people that want to sign up, you can either tell them to go to the, just go to the website. There's a sign up form on the website. There's also, or you can email it to communications@northtabor.org, and that forwards to several of us. And Jules, I added you onto that email forwarder just to make certain things a little easier.
Here's the sign up page in the chat. So you can put that into an email or a text and people can sign up from there.
Oh, that was great.
Well, honestly, I was thinking of something more aggressive, which is you do it for them. You ask them,
Oh, we
would
can
you
do
like
that
to get the
too.
newsletter? Because if you have to give them one more step to do, it'll drop to the
Exactly.
bottom of their list. But if I say, I'd be great if I had your email address anyway, in case something comes up in the neighborhood, but shall I just send it in for you, or something like
Right.
that?
Yeah, you can totally add it manually, like no problem. So
Okay.
Oh, that looks good. That's great.
Oh, great. All right. So
And where will we find that when we're not on our Zoom meeting?
well, it's not posted anywhere yet on anywhere.
Oh.
So ideally, and I think, obviously like getting signups would be the next thing. And there's some simple things that we can do with the website to have this like its own page there. But this is really good for social sharing. Like this is something that we could put on, a Facebook or a Nextdoor post as well to elicit those signups.
Right. So that's your next step, Jules. Is that what you're saying? That's what you're calling the landing page, right?
This is a landing page. Yeah. So it's built. We just got to get it plugged in to our site, which is pretty easy to do. But there's a few other things. I laid it out in the proposal with the website. We have that newsletter section and it's pretty outdated. So that would be an opportunity for us to have, hey, if the newsletter's got a drop down, you go sign up, and then we can also post the newsletters visually, like some of the other, like I think Southeast Uplift does this. So it's not, so you can like go and browse through, and they're essentially kind of like blog posts, right?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay,
right.
Jules, let's you and I coordinate on that, and we can get that.
For sure.
Get the process, moving along.
And then you could just send
Oh,
an email
there's-
to all of us to say, the landing page is up. Here it is.
There's
Go get
Lars.
your
There's
5 to
Lars
10
and Kim.
people.
Yeah,
and
I just wanted to,
sign them up.
go ahead. I just wanted to acknowledge Linda's joined us, and so has Lars and Kim. Lars and Kim look like they might be having some technical difficulties with their audio right now. Can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you. All right, well, while they're working that out, is there any other further discussion we want to have about the newsletter or any other communications topics?
The next one is, I'm going to start working on the next one here pretty soon. So if anybody has any ideas, or I hit pretty heavy the gardening and health stuff this time around. So what's some good topics for April? We had, Women's History Month, which was obviously really great to be able to purpose, but I'd like to be able to, maybe do some biking stuff, or what are some other kind of topics that we can hit and find resources around.
Earth Day.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, good one.
Duh.
Yeah.
Earth Day. And then what was my other thought?
I think gardening.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Gardening.
Or
Yeah, spots or something, because I know people are starting to kind of get reservations in, or I don't know. I'll take a look around and see, but if you guys have any suggestions, let me know and I can dig. The other thing is that I would really like to be able to feature local businesses or local or just like awesome people. So we do have kind of the running list of people in North Tabor proper, but there are a lot of other little businesses around that don't necessarily get much love from other areas that were, so if anybody has ideas like, hey, let's, there's this awesome person that is doing a lot of stuff in the neighborhood that we want to feature, or if we want to feature one of you guys, or a business or a nonprofit or something, any preference around who to kind of have featured there would be great.
How about that little bike shop in the QFC shopping mall?
Oh, Ruthie, yeah.
Yeah,
she's
she's
awesome.
cool.
Great idea. I do just want to acknowledge Greg Bourget just joined us. And Greg, we're going to be right with you. We have one more topic to cover before we get to your presentation. But if there's nothing further to discover or to discuss about communication, let's move on to the Southeast Uplift. It looks like we lost Lars and Kim too, so maybe they'll come back.
Sometimes signing in and out is the way to do it. All right, a quick update of what's happening at Southeast Uplift. The board is very involved in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, DEIA training, which the staff all went through. And then they just decided the best way to get us to do it was not to add an extra session or do it on our own, but just take up a sizable chunk of the board meeting. So we did the first session with the same trainer that worked with the staff, who was really pretty good, really nice slides that I can send around, or we can even decide it's something we want to do. You know, they'd love to encourage the neighborhoods to have more DEIA literacy. It would be all part of being a more welcoming neighborhood association. So I think we have 2 more sessions of that at the April meeting and the May meeting. We have now transitioned, I think today actually, from Leroy to Leah Fisher. So those of you who have worked with Leah already with the land use and transportation, she's the most senior staff person, and she is the interim executive director for now. And I think so far so good. Leroy prepared her really well. We're sorry to lose Leroy, but I think I maybe explained this before, that his wife's family and his kind of pull that he left from in Eastern Washington pulled him back basically during the pandemic, wanting to be closer to family. So he actually has been working from home up there for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, running everything at Southeast Uplift, but all on Zoom. So he actually went ahead and got another job up there. So we very competent, and I think the board executive committee will figure out what kind of a search to do, and I think she's on for at least through the fall, I believe. Then the letter that you talked about at the last meeting, the Representative Noss letter about houselessness, that had many of the same comments that people here raised across all the different neighborhoods. There were lots of neighborhood associations that decided to vote no against it. I took your comments as basically adding up to a no. So I voted no on behalf of North Tabor. But the ultimate vote that was fairly close did pass with a few little amendments, with, I think, the idea that we're not getting lost in the weeds around where will these be and what will they look like. We just wanted to support the Representative Noss in jumping in around more options, the city using its land. Just let's keep thinking. So I think that was the general tenor of it. And then the only other thing I would mention, I think we're going to talk about later, was this incredible open house that Joanne Hardesty had, which I think blew their minds, that over 300 people showed up to it. So that was a really good signal about the neighborhood associations are alive and well and want to know what her leadership is about. And in particular, wanted to know a lot about what happened with the Southwest Neighborhood Coalition, Sweeney. I won't go into it here, but I think if you want to know why she decided, how it was disbanded, how they're going to have staff run the Southwest neighborhoods, just kind of Google that and you'll get the story. At first, it seemed maybe, is this threatening to all the other neighborhood associations? But no, it really isn't. She looked only at that neighborhood association and very closely and came up with her decision. So that's basically what I have to report for now. And as always, I'll say you're welcome to come to the board meetings. They're the first Monday of every month if you want to come to even a little part of it or get some of this DEIA training. They're not closed. In fact, the executive sessions aren't closed either, or the land use committee. So they're all about promoting participation. And so I'll just throw that out there again. Just contact me or contact SEUL, Southeast Uplift, and you don't have to be an officer or even a member of the board to attend any of those things.
I'll just add, I did attend one of those DEI trainings through Southeast Uplift earlier this year, probably not the same one as you. And in one of the small groups, I was paired up with somebody from the Brooklyn neighborhood association who they had already started their own sort of DEI subcommittee. I said that was intriguing. We exchanged information, and I might reach out to her to learn more about that. But I think it's something we could possibly consider if people are interested in that. Any other comments, questions about Southeast Uplift?
Yeah, one quick question. Sorry, I just joined late.
Oh, sorry. There you are, Lars.
Can you just, the DEI, what is that for?
Go ahead.
Yeah. DEIA is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So the board would like really all the neighborhood associations as a way of understanding how welcoming we are to people of different backgrounds, of different cultures, of different skin colors, of different identities. We've got a lot of different people here in this city. It's a way you study your own understanding of all that's contained in DEIA. For example, the difference between equity and equality. That's one example. Well, what do those two words mean? What do they imply? So it's a kind of literacy. In some places, it's called JEDI work, and J stands for justice. So then it's justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. But the accessibility on Zoom, we actually are much more accessible than we were because we didn't have wheelchair accessibility at the church. So we actually had a physical barrier for anybody participating in that space. But that's accessibility could, like the commissioner would love to be able to provide interpreters for people that don't have hearing at any neighborhood association meeting. Of course, there's no budget for it, but that would be a breakthrough, another access point.
Okay.
So that's the general domain.
Thank
Lars.
you. Thanks.
Before we move on to our presenter, I don't know if Kim's there with you, Lars, but we did have a question. Oh, she's not. Okay.
Well, actually, I do. She's leaving, but if you can ask, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if we've already missed the deadline for the Southeast Examiner or if that's still tomorrow, but we might have.
The 24th, I believe.
She believes it's the 24th, March 24th.
Okay. Then I think there's going to be something we have to submit there. So
Okay.
we'll reach out to her.
Okay.
All right, then I think our next agenda item under new business is Cascadia Action presentation, Ray Air Quality by Greg Bourget. So Greg, you're there. Welcome to the North Tabor Neighborhood Association. I'll let you take it away. And do you have a presentation that you need to show or a slide presentation or anything? Okay.
Well, thanks for making a space this evening we can talk. I'm Greg Bourget. I work as the lead researcher for Portland Clean Air and Cascadia Action. And so I've been working on leading a team for the past 7 years. We've requested the data from 8 government agencies that hold the data for Portland air pollution. All this data had never been seen by the public. I'm working with computer programmers and Google mappers and people who do statistics, a bunch of folks with relevant PhDs, including chemists and toxicologists, and all these folks are helping us understand how the data can be portrayed in a way that everybody can understand. When we started, we were ranked as the worst city in the United States for respiratory distress from air pollution by the EPA. Apparently, Oregon has some of the worst environmental protection rules in the country. And what we found out during the Bullseye Glass scandal is that the DEQ wasn't using human health as a factor in the regulation of air pollution. Now that's changed a bit for new industries coming to Oregon. They're all being kind of regulated now, but all the existing industries, still none of them have had health-based regulation. DEQ plans to start that with 9 industries over the next 5 years. of which 4 industries have been called in for a health assessment, and they'll be theoretically regulated when the results come out in a few months. In terms of, so we have very serious stack emitters. A study by UMass Amherst found that precision cast parts was the worst industrial air polluter in the United States. They talked a lot about that one facility over in Southeast. They talked their way down to 14. I don't think there's a study on that. But the study's coming out in a few months. They were actually made to finally speciate chromium to see how much of their chromium is chromium 4, ultra dangerous, versus trivalent chromium, which is relatively safe. The study by DEQ, the level 1 screening, found that Owens Brockway was more dangerous than precision cast parts. But they're one of 10 industries that mitigated in the past 3 years. So far, 10 industries have put up a control device or ended a dangerous industrial process, generally at a cost of over $1 million per industry, solely because of citizen action, not because of government regulation. So there's been this huge clean air movement, and we're working on helping that to occur. In terms of what our problem is, it's a mixture of smokestacks and diesel particulate. Portland ranks currently in the worst 1% of counties for exposure to diesel particulate, which is the worst airborne carcinogen according to California risk assessments. California found that 70% of cancer from all airborne carcinogens combined is from diesel particulate alone. So California banned unfiltered trucks, and by 2015, there was virtually none left in the state. We requested ODOT and DMV data and found that through statistical analysis, that 3/4 of the trucks in the 3-county Portland area have no filter. So we are working to address that through citizen action, and the goal that we have, or the method that we use, is through negotiation directly with the factories. We don't lobby, maybe a little bit to city and county government, but because Oregon still accepts unlimited corporate donations to politicians in the legislature, which is currently legal in 45 states, we noticed that the Oregon legislature has been striking down environmental legislation for decades, and we don't think they'll stop anytime soon. In the last election in November, we finally legalized as a state having campaign finance limits, but they're not enacted yet. Only the ability to enact them has happened. And currently we have the second most expensive elections in the nation behind only New Jersey. So I think legislators feel if they vote for the environment, they'll get kicked out of office, and it's probably true. So we don't really lobby. What we've been doing is working with the stakeholders who live next to the facilities to directly negotiate with these polluters, which is, I think, what Dr. Martin Luther King was doing. Although he was doing some lobbying to the president for the Civil Rights Act, he was also creating a civil upheaval in the South, which became something that legislators couldn't ignore. And so we think that civil upheaval, to some degree, is necessary so that industries and government have to take notice. And so we've been reaching out to organizations to help ask them to join with us. And that's why I'm here tonight, ask them to participate in a citywide movement to address industrial pollution. So far, 3,000 people have donated to our group through our door-to-door canvassing, and also through our work in front of food stores, which are not doing so much during COVID. Also, 52 neighborhood association boards have provided a liaison to this project. The idea is that 52 neighborhood associations working together would be something that would be very hard to ignore for an industry here in Portland. We've been asking the neighborhood associations participating if they could help us understand the size of their contact list. Like, for instance, we've been working with Northeast Coalition Neighborhoods for many years, and they've got quite a large list, things like 15,000 people. Also, 15 churches and synagogues and 6 other local groups have provided a liaison to this project. So among the 72 participating organizations, their contact lists are about 200,000 people, we're estimating. We have about 70,000 counted so far of those who have given us the information back. So I think it gives you an idea of the scale that we are working on, in a sense that an industry would find that really hard to ignore. And indeed, industries have been making deals with neighbors instead of fighting back, mostly because of that. We're working with 8 Portland neighborhood associations who are negotiating with industry, whether it's the Linton Tank Farms, Owens Brockway, some of the biggest unfiltered trucking companies, the Union Pacific Albina Rail Yard. These big polluters have neighborhood associations nearby that are affected, and we've helped them write letters that detail the science and the records, explain the problem and the solution, and ask them to do the right thing. And 30 endorsements from 30 organizations. And the way that we work is through a individual we call a spoke or a liaison. And that's what I was hoping that someone today could volunteer for. Acting as a spoke doesn't have to take very much time. Some spokes work a lot, like in Linton, they have this tank farms nearby, and the Seismic Commission of Oregon, OSPAC, has said that during Cascadia, that facility, which contains 90% of the gasoline in the entire state, as well as chlorine gas and anhydrous ammonia, they're saying the facility will fail and will be a disaster on par with Fukushima, in their words. So the folks in Linton are very upset, and they're putting a lot of work into reports and negotiations. And so their spoke is very active. They have several people. Elliot had a whole committee for a while working on this. But that's the maximum. The minimum is just getting letters from other neighborhood associations to your board, and just a little bit of back and forth communication. The reason that's important is that if all of us would work together on an important thing that's happening, talking to 72 organizations in the meeting would be very, very difficult. So that's why the liaisons help facilitate communication to make this kind of scale possible. So I'm glad to answer any questions about any of this, both in the meeting or outside the meeting. And I would love to find someone who would be willing to perform this role if the board wanted it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from folks for Greg? Lars, and you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry. I just have, I know this is a minor question, but you mentioned about Cascadia, which is basically an event that would destroy the western part of both Oregon and Washington. And I don't think we'd have to really worry about anything because it'll be mass disaster. So I wonder, my concern about one little place, Cascadia, there will be millions of people who will die. So that's sort of like the end of the West Coast. So I just thought that was interesting that they would worry about Cascadia, when their lives and their homes and the entire everything will be one big disaster.
Yeah, there's something unusual about the Linton tank farms, is that their average age is over 50 years old before there was any seismic building code at all. Also, they're built on fill instead of on bedrock. They should be on bedrock. So during an earthquake, the fill will liquefy, which will cause all the tanks to fail. Whereas tanks that are built on bedrock aren't so inclined to fail in a seismic event. Also, they're put next to anhydrous ammonia and chlorine, which probably isn't a good idea for a bunch of oil tanks. Many other places around the country have put up containment units around their tanks in case of failure. We have not. Florida and many other places have passed rules to minimize danger of tank failure, but we have not. So I think also you can decentralize the tanks. You don't have to have them all concentrated in one specific place. I think that a lot of experts are saying they should be spread out along the route of transmission instead of all put in one small community. That makes them safer. So I think there's some mitigations that they could do to make it safer.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, this is not the place to, argue about the effects of Cascadia earthquake, but millions of people are not going to die. There's going to be lots of damage if it's a 9 or 9.5. But just like in San Francisco in 1906, the thing that killed more people was not the earthquake. It was the stuff that was the result of the earthquake. In that case, it was a fire. And so here, the earthquake here, particularly in Portland, the Cascadia, will feel it. The bridges might be damaged. A lot of people will die for sure, but things like the pollution of the Willamette and the Columbia from all of the stuff that's going to spill out of the industrial areas are very serious. And anything along the river, for the most part, is built on fill. So a lot of that stuff is the ground's going to turn to jelly. And so these environmental things are really serious. So particularly, I know there in Linton, that's a highly polluted area anyway. And it would be a lot worse if those tank farms, which are in the worst place possible, were to fail. So that's just my comment on that.
One more quick thing is we just completed a study of the tank farms, and we found that the emissions that are being reported to EQ are quite a bit different from EPA. EPA made several asphalt tanks and other and gasoline tanks actually measure their emissions, and those measurements were 30 times higher than the measurements than the guesses that are being reported to the EQ. So if you look at those studies and apply it to the Linton tank farms, where it would be 1 million pounds of VOCs coming out of those gasoline tanks and asphalt tanks a year, over 1 million pounds. And so there's a control device they can install on the vent, which consumes 99% of those emissions before they go airborne. And that's what we saw on Bullseye Glass, is that they had no control device. And now that they have one up there, they're catching 6,000 pounds of lead, cadmium, arsenic, and chromium a year in those in their baghouse, and that they're catching in 55-gallon drums and sending it toxic waste instead of putting up over their roof as they were into the air before their control device went up. And so I think that's one of the things we've been asking for all along, is just to install control devices. We want industry to stay, and we're not anti-industry, but we just want them to use control devices and use safe practices.
Stephanie, you had a question?
Yeah. First, I don't know, Greg, are you right by a busy highway or something where there's it's a little bit hard to hear you sometimes?
It might be the fan from my laptop. Sorry.
That happens to me a
that
lot,
is
too.
it.
I'll mute it when I'm not talking.
Oh, thanks. So my question, I love your work, actually. I heard you speak for the First Unitarian Committee for Earth Group. And I think if it were easy to show one or two of the slides to give people a sense of what your compilation of data is, it's very impressive. So from a North Tabor perspective, I'm just wondering, what have you spotted that is a problem leaker or industry that's closest to us? And are there other neighborhoods close to us that we could work with? We've done some work with Mount Tabor, but we haven't done anything along this line with another neighborhood association. So if you could get us on your map and give us a sense of that, that would be great. There we go. It's so
Sure.
awesome.
So if you can you scroll down a little bit to that map there? And if you zoom in one time. Yeah, okay. That's great. If you go up a little bit, because now you're kind of south on the map there. Oh, now it's zooming way in.
Sorry, where would you like me to go?
Just if you overview Portland, go by going up a bit.
Sure. Let me see what I can do. I'm on a laptop without a mouse, so I'm trying to. Here we go. Oh boy.
So what he's showing right here, this is the first map ever made of every stack emitter in Portland. We used the data from numerous agencies. When we first started, we kept asking DEQ if they had something like this. Turns out they didn't. So here you go. There's all the polluters, and there's a key showing what kind they are. And we've embedded all of the Clean Air Oregon data into this map, working with the computer programmers. So for instance, don't do it, but if you click on one of those purple or red icons, you can actually see all of their Clean Air Oregon emissions, the most accurate emissions we've ever seen. And then all of these have their on-site chemical storage listed. So it's really easy to, look at by your house and see. And so where you are in North Tabor, I looked, and you have two things that are of concern. One is you have I-84, and a study by ODOT called these 24-hour truck counts, where what they did was they threw a rubber strip over the road, and they counted the number of trucks that pass per day, and they can tell whether it's an industrial truck or not. And And so you have a surprisingly low truck count for a highway. It's about 175 truck trips a day, as opposed to, like, for instance, the I-5 in northeast Portland is 1,500 truck trips a day. So you don't have an astronomically high number of trucks, surprisingly, on 84. But, you know, if I lived within a few blocks, I might consider, and you know, to remove diesel particulate, that we can scan the entire neighborhood, working with cities to like their neighborhoods and map their particular ARGIS. And all the equipment free, but
Did we lose Greg?
He's frozen. Let's see.
Okay. Let's give him a minute. Patty, did you have a question while we're waiting for Greg to come back?
Well, I
or-
will say this, that for years, and it's been 15 or more years, there is a smell in my backyard at a certain time of day, usually in the morning. And it's like a lacquer smell. And I've got this app on my phone that I reported on, but nobody ever, I've never heard anything. But now I look at Gray Bar Electric and I'm like, I wonder if it's from there. But it does, it smells like lacquer.
Mhm.
And it's very strong in my backyard, usually in about 10 o'clock in the morning. So
I wonder if it's that shed, the Tough Shed place,
don't know.
so if you have a
'cause that's over there too.
Say that again, Greg.
if you have VOCs coming from your house, near your house, what you can do is for like $75, you can get a monitor on Amazon that has a DART sensor. And so they're pretty accurate. And what a DART sensor does is it tells you TVOC, or total VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, which is what you're smelling. And it gives you a number for the micrograms per cubic meter. And so you can use a device like that to walk around your neighborhood and map the cloud. And so what that shows you is not only the extent of the cloud, you can do it on a bicycle, you know, bike around, but also it shows you the concentration. A study of Vigor and Daimler by University of Portland. Is that right? North Portland? University of Portland, yeah. They used human noses with people with training. But I think these DART sensors make it really easy to just bullseye the cloud on the place it's coming from, because you can walk towards the concentration gradient going higher. It should walk you right to the source. So these DART sensors are kind of a new invention. I've been working with a guy who is a PhD in I think he's in chemistry, and he's with a local company that does air monitor research. And anyway, so he's been telling me these DART sensors are really good, and so we're getting a bunch of them. Also, you have a mortuary nearby. Is anyone familiar with your mortuary?
Where's that?
Yeah, I saw it on the map. Do you know which one it is?
You know, it is named there, and it's on the other side of the highway, and I've been wondering if mortuaries remove the mercury fillings.
The one.
No, it's a pet crematorium.
Oh, pet crematorium.
That's what that is.
Well, they probably don't have mercury fillings.
Hopefully not.
Oh, because there's
No, but this, I'm sorry.
Is there a crematorium also? Because I see it on the highway. It's a pet crematorium.
Okay, that's better.
Off of Halsey, over kind of the industrial area from like 67th down to 60th.
Isn't that the
Looks like it's
Banfield?
both.
Banfield
Looks like it's
Pets something?
Looks like it's First Mortuary on Pacific Street, and also
Oh, there could be a mortuary too. I don't know.
yeah,
I know
looks
that
like
there's a
they-
pet one.
They do a lot
I
of.
worked with some neighbors when I was scanning DEQ permits. We scanned like 5,000 pages of permits, and one of the neighbor association folks there, they fought a mortuary for years. But I'm not super familiar with mortuaries, but I do have their emails. But I know there's concern with mortuaries, but I'm not super knowledgeable of mortuaries. I've been more studying other kinds of facilities.
We should get
You-
one of these DART things and own it by NTNA, and then we could try and map different things. Sounds
Yeah,
pretty
Yeah, we're
cheap.
about to get some.
This sounds like a springtime activity.
Yeah.
Keith, you had a question?
Yeah, so what is like you mentioned that you had some programmers and people like that working on this project. Is there like, are they, do you have volunteers? Are there like what kind of volunteer positions or needs do you have?
Well, we need all kinds of volunteers. I think the kind of volunteer we've been working with mostly lately is DEQ, Purple Air. Let's see, the sensor bots, which by Chris Eicamp's project, and let's see, there's a fourth one. The bullseye glass monitors from the settlement. That's 65 particulate monitors that are up around the Portland area. 65 of them, and no one's ever seen the data. So what we're doing is we're collecting all the data from all these monitors, and we're making a series of graphs that show all the data on a series of graphs for comparative particulate comparisons. We have a model of diesel particulate, and this will help us improve our model. But we also have these bike-mounted monitors, so we want to collect and know the right time of day to collect, so so that the levels are all the same. And so we have all these folks helping with SQL and Excel. A lot of folks doing data analysis. But there's folks who help with research, proofreading, media. There's so much to do, and because we help neighbor associations who have limited time, what we do is work on providing all of the resources they might need to negotiate. And so they have all these questions, and it creates a ton of work. So we have lots of volunteers that we work with, and we ask people. We need more and more and more help. So, but lots of skills apply.
Robert?
Well, Stephanie had started to mention something that had occurred to me too. I mean, at $75 a piece, we could buy a couple of these, but it would only make sense if under your direction or somebody that would collate the data, tell us how to collect it, tell what kind of data that would be useful to you. Patty following the stink to the source in her neighborhood, that would be interesting, but it doesn't really, unless the data or the information goes upstream, it doesn't really do any good. So do you work with neighborhood associations that will, do you have a plan? You could give us a plan and we could, because one thing that our small neighborhood association, we sort of need something to get people interested. And 84 has always been a sore point here for lots of reasons, noise, but also pollution. And so I think, we could probably get more neighbors actually interested in the neighborhood association if we, in the next newsletter, say we said we'd have something about air pollution, and would you like to participate in our North Tabor study to help Cascadia, define the problem, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that you would work with us on?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do with neighborhood associations.
Okay.
And so,
because we can afford to buy a couple of those things. If we got money, we're not spending.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed that there's a kind that has a readout that's really easy to read. You could write it on a piece of paper, the numbers. But we believe there's a kind that logs to your phone. And so what you do is you bike around and then you collect a data set on your phone. And then what we do is we collect that and give it to our GIS technician. And then he portrays it on a GIS map so that you can just not do a lot of writing of all the little numbers. And then it looks a whole lot better. And so I would love to work with you on something like that. And then if you do pinpoint an industry, what we do is we work with you to send in a negotiator, which starts off with a letter. So we pen a letter saying we've done a study, et cetera, et cetera. And we explain the situation, and we work with DEQ to understand what they should be doing, because DEQ can't necessarily make them do it, but they always tell us at least what they could do, what the options are. And so we'll suggest, hey, I think y'all need a thermal oxidizer or something like that. And then the negotiator would be someone from your board. So then I'm always being contacted by the boards, and they'll say, okay, here's the response they gave us, and we'll talk about it. But the idea is that we don't want to put ourselves in charge of negotiations, since we don't live in the neighborhood by the facility. So we work on providing all the support you need so that you can do minimal work on your end, but still be in charge of your own destiny with your relationship with the industries nearby. And I would love to work with you on a VOC study. We're getting really excited about that because of Linton, as well as Hayden Island and Bridgeton. They're getting hammered by Apes and Orco, 2 re-refineries. And there's just a wild stench that's been in the air for years from those facilities, that one has no filtration at all. The other one does recently because of citizen action, but they have lots of fugitive emissions. And it's horrible. It shuts down kids' ball games, and it's really extreme. And so we've been really interested in this VOC monitoring, but I'd love to work with you in your area, because every time we do a study like that, we get better at it. So I'd love to work with you. And I think the way we could do it is if one of you could act as a liaison, because then your neighborhood could talk to your person and say, hey, tell Greg we want A, B, and C, and ask them about this and that. And then when I talk to that person, I can have a relationship with them, so that I could also ask your board to maybe endorse some letters. And so this person is just facilitating communication. It might take a half an hour a month, an hour a month, and it's all done through email. And so each participating group has provided a liaison for this purpose, sometimes 2, and at times a whole committee.
So I don't want to take up too much more time on this meeting, but do you have either on your website or something just this written out and how you work with the neighborhood association and what our responsibilities would be, so that we can decide what action to take?
I do, and even if you have someone who's willing tonight just act as an interim spoke.
Well, I mean, I'll do it. I'll do it as far as being a point of contact, at least. And the one thing that I would say, for the VOCs, that does not include diesel particulates, I assume.
Right, 2 different things.
And that is probably our biggest concern, because we're so close to 84. But the only quasi-industrial type thing in our neighborhood is Providence Hospital, and so they could certainly be cranking out a lot of nasty stuff, but they may not be. It would be interesting to know. But we're not next to Bullseye or any kind of in our neighborhood. Now, there may be some across the freeway, but those are not in our neighborhood. Anyway, yeah, if you could, I'll put my email address in the chat, and so you could send me whatever it is that you would send me as an info package.
I can pass that along to you as well, Greg. Patty, I want to make sure we cover your question before we close out on this topic.
I just had a question for Greg. So in this case, the smell that's coming is coming from across the freeway, which would be Rose City neighborhood. So would we work together with them, or, how does that work? Did you hear me?
Frozen.
Uh-oh. Frozen in time.
Is he frozen again?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, if he doesn't come back, I'll send that follow-up question to him. And Robert, I'll make sure he gets your email address as well.
Yeah, we probably spent enough time on this here.
I would love to also get like a little blurb about the project and what they're looking for, and include it in the newsletter next month, since it is Earth Day and all that stuff. So just to bring some awareness to it.
It's a great idea. Perfect timing.
Website is really rich in the data. You could see just from that one map. But it sounds like if we could get that one kind of monitor that you ride around with your bicycle, that might be more expensive than the $75 one. I'm not sure.
I was just thinking, like, my older kids would love to just ride around.
Yeah, it'd be a great thing for kids to get involved with, for sure.
Yeah.
Do a little science fair project.
Well, and he was mentioning a phone app that you do it and then you download. That sounds like a good idea too. But I want to ask a question. Are we going to vote Robert tonight?
That is our very next.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to let him
It's
go.
on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for that segue. I didn't have to make it. But Ross, how do you say your last name? Heiner?
Heiner, yes.
Got it. Ross Heiner has self-nominated himself to join the board. I believe that our bylaws allow for a member to do that mid-year. And we have space. So actually have to make the motion.
Well, I would go ahead.
I was going to ask, is Jules on the board now, or is she just a participant?
I didn't know I could nominate myself.
You can nominate yourself. We do have room. but you don't have to take on a position or anything. You can just be on the board.
She's already got a position.
A member at, yeah, you already have a position. You can be a member at large.
Okay, not to take away from Ross's, but
Yeah,
That'd
well,
be great.
then potentially two motions here.
Yes,
so
we
why
can,
don't-
we can vote for both of them at one time, and then they're active next month. They can vote next month.
Ross, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thanks. My name's Ross Heiner. I've been in the neighborhood for about 3 years. I've been in Portland for about 5 years, grew up in the Midwest, lived in some bigger cities, including Chicago and New York before moving here. I'm a civil engineer, so I appreciated the discussion on the Cascadia earthquake, a little bit of that. Definitely is a topic in my line of work, but yeah, just wanted to be part of the neighborhood and try after renting in the neighborhood, bought a house last year, and so now trying to get better knitted into the neighborhood, as I'll be here for a while. So that's a little bit about me, but happy to answer any questions.
Where do you live exactly, or what streets, just so we can place you in the neighborhood?
Yeah, 60th and Davis. If you've noticed the peace sign on the fence, that's
Right in
us.
the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good. And we already know about Jules, I guess, right? She need to,
Yeah, my apologies, Jules. I just assumed you were a member of the board already.
well, I would move that we vote to accept both of these applicants for board position, which would be effective next month.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that Ross Heiner and Jules Unger be accepted as board members. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those not in favor say nay. Anyone abstaining? Sounds like we have a unanimous vote to move to pass or to accept Ross Heiner and Jules Unger as board members.
Perfect.
Great.
Commence reactions.
Yay.
There's no salary, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Ross, do we have your email address? I'd like to add you to the, we've got some email forwarders. I'd like to add you to that.
Okay, yeah, just my name, rossheiner@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thanks.
Great. Welcome. All right. The final topic we have for tonight is just a report from the Hardesty Open House. I put this on CJ, but there could be others who attended who are welcome to just give us a brief update on how that went.
Yeah, I think it was at least Stephanie and me, right? Anybody else here?
Mhm.
got that? Well, there was over like 400 folks that attended. Let's see what I put here. And I've got, and Stephanie, you gave me the notes, but would you be down to just kind of like relay your own memory of it after I finish my little run?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Sure.
I'm juggling a couple papers. Let's see here. There was a lot about the Sweeney situation, which you referenced earlier, which I don't know too much about, but it looks like there was some issues going on with them before Hardesty was even involved, and then did some auditing into it, tried to figure out what was going on. And now it looks like you might understand this better. They're funding 2 positions to do something that Sweeney used to do. Do you know more about that, Stephanie? What that whole part was?
Well, like we have staff on the Southeast Uplift organization that runs all of us, but with Sweeney disbanded, the staff is going to be in the Office of Civic Life, Civic and Community Life.
Okay. Yeah.
And it may be interim and she wants neighbors involved in hiring them, but for now, Sweeney doesn't exist.
Okay. Yeah, and there was concerns about insurance, which I also didn't understand. People get insurance through Sweeney? Like who's insuring what?
Board members get insured and also staff. And if you have a building, So it's through OCCL
Mhm.
coordinating all of it. So they're gonna make sure that's all covered.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm learning all these things, but yeah, they're funding two positions. Hardesty was just trying to let people know that she is not necessarily following up with a lot of Chloe Udaley's priorities when it comes to how they're handling the neighborhood associations. She wants to inspire a lot of people to come and join these conversations. Her priorities were reopening the city safely, in investing a lot in the people who are most suffering from the pandemic, people who are people of color, people who do not have stable housing, people in poverty. Oh, we are also insured. Thank you, Robert. I didn't know about that.
If you're on a board that the board could do something that somebody could not like and sue the board, you got to be insured. So almost any board you're going to be on, somewhere there's an insurance policy that's covering you.
I see. Thank you for that. There was also a conversation about mitigating gun violence. Really, I don't know how many of you were able to see the state of the county that Deborah Kafuri put out a couple weeks ago, but a big part of that was looking at everything through a public health lens. And Commissioner Hardesty was kind of echoing that mitigating gun violence through a public health lens, seeing what are the actual roots of violence in the community and addressing those rather than throwing everything at increasing budgets in what could be considered more reactive measures. So a lot more proactive responses to that. Talked a little bit about how and I can talk about a lot of these things myself because I do crisis response, but the street response team, it's in the Lentz neighborhood right now. It's operating through Portland Fire and Rescue, just got off the ground feels like 2 months ago. And they've been talking about that forever. Seems to be going well. And if you're not familiar, it's kind of the Cahoots model, which is a model of crisis response coming out of Eugene, where rather than police responding, they'll have a social worker and a medical technician, a nurse or EMT go out in these 2-person teams. They respond a lot to non-emergency situations or ones that are more about mental health, substance abuse, etc., that don't necessarily need an emergency armed response. And so our street response team in Lentz is doing that, and we're hoping that will grow to join alongside the crisis teams we already have, Project Respond, and the behavioral health unit teams that we have right now. Some focus on car-free streets and working on our infrastructure around making it possible for people to get around without cars or reducing car usage, which I think is also Portland Bureau of Transportation seems to be pushing that direction for a long time. And now for the neighborhood association parts, trying to make it a welcoming environment, making sure that we continue to have virtual meeting options as much as possible, which we're already on board with. Increasing marginalized voices, which kind of comes back to the JEDI, the diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility conversation from earlier, making sure that including people who are of targeted identities are able to represent our communities in these associations. Making the government more accessible in general, making it more easy for people to plug into the government and the local ways of change. There was some conversation about addressing houselessness. Of course, you talked a little bit about the shelter to housing continuum, which I think I might have mentioned before. It's a series of zoning changes that makes it, changes what happens with some of the, what do they call them? Not open air. Some areas, especially on the east side, that they're trying to change the zoning so that people can have shelters there in different ways, temporarily at least. So there was a little discussion about that. Of course, making affordable housing that's actually affordable. Talking about community safety. How do we make communities safer? How do we address gun violence without necessarily using the gun violence reduction or gun violence response team, which was cut a little while ago and people are upset about that. Commissioner Hardesty talked about how the effectiveness of that program and how there was a lot of you know, the figure that we talk about a lot is that people who were contacted through the gun violence team were, you know, more than 50% of them were Black, even though Black people make up 6% of the population of Portland, and how there were issues going on with that, that there's been issues going on with that without getting too much into it. A little conversation about why there might be more guns on the streets, about how guns, if you don't remember, everyone was buying guns last year, especially before the election. And now a lot of those guns may have found their ways into other people's hands by either purchasing or just a lot of people not locking up their cars and having guns in them, or having locked cars and just having guns in there. There just might be more guns out there right now. Please keep your guns in safes, or please, that's just from me personally. We talked a little bit about more alternatives to police. They talk about violence interrupters, community connectors, again, kind of these alternatives. So what we can do to support each other in our neighborhoods, neighborhood mediation programs with peers as opposed to the criminal justice system. And then the Q&A section. And Stephanie, maybe you want to chat a little bit about what they talked about at the Q&A?
I'll just say that we were very impressed generally with Joanne Hardesty being so interested in working with organizations, really wanting to listen, their staff on board, and she's very clear she wants to make government more accessible to people of Portland at all levels. So a few of the things that came up as questions from people to bring back the board trainings that the Office of Neighborhood Involvement used to do before it became OCCL, that it really paid off and people wanted it. So that was kind of lobbying her for that. Then we would know more about how to use our technical tools, how to manage people that take over and act like, you know, bully pulpits running the place. There are things, we've got a pretty smooth working neighborhood association right now, but things can go awry. So board trainings, there are standards for NAs, which we probably haven't even looked at. They were written 15 years ago, ONI standards. And so a person suggested, let's bring those up and update them. And Hardesty right away said, well, are you meeting those standards? And her point was about accountability. So, you know, we need some way of not having more neighborhoods like our coalitions get into trouble. There's 90+ neighborhood associations, and there hasn't been a systematic way of either training people or keeping track of what they're doing. So some of the participants were suggesting being even more creative with our inclusion work by how can we provide things in different languages, or make the board meetings accessible on Snapchat, or, you know, work to overcome some of the digital divide. So lots of creative thinking. And I think at one point she said, you know, this is not your old city council. We've got all these new commissioners. We're just not going to do business the way we used to do it. And she is seeing the kinds of ironies in, like, you know, wanting more car-free streets, and yet PBOT gets all its revenue from parking fees and fossil fuel gas taxes. So how can you address the climate when the Bureau of Transportation is basically reliant on dirty fuels? So what I got out of this was she was connecting the dots a lot, and her experience on the city council already is really standing us in good stead. So it's really a sea change from Chloe U. Daly, who was, I don't know, just kind of on a warpath, it seemed like, with NAs. But I think U. Daly will, Hardesty will continue to try to figure out what the other community organizations should be. She's doing quite an analysis of the office right now and interviewing staff. And, you know, I think it's probably some question whether the director stays or not. There's been a lot of really bad hostile work environment in the office for OCCL, and Hardesty's heard all about it. And she's a real, what's the right word? She reads people. It seems like she cuts through bullshit really directly. So I think that this was a huge success. And if there's another one, I definitely encourage people to listen in, because she's our person in charge of OCCL.
Is there a recording of that anywhere? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure they were planning on that, so it should be on the website. Yeah, OCCL. I don't know if it's posted yet, but they wanted to make it accessible. In fact, they had deaf interpreters through the whole thing. That was kind of refreshing.
Mhm.
All right. Any questions around that? Great. I was really sorry to miss it. I couldn't believe I was double booked on that day, but it's the way it goes.
Well, just even if you watch 15 minutes or a half an hour of the recording, you'll get a feeling of her priorities and her leadership style
Definitely gonna
around
seek
our
that
kinds
out.
of issues. Yeah.
Lars, did you have a question?
We actually did attend the LUTC meeting. Did you guys want a little report on that, or are we skipping over that?
You know, we kind of lumped it into one item and skipped over it just to make time for Greg. But if you want to give us a quick,
I'll just give you a real,
yeah,
because I mean, I took some notes, but it's so basically it was jumped into two different presentations by ODOT about the I-5 bridge project that's coming up. But first of all, they talked about zoning, about the design overlay and zone amendments, what they call DOZA. But they talked about very detailed things about their processes, and to be honest with you, Lisa attended it too. It was so detailed that I don't know that anybody got anything out of it. I mean, it's all information, but it's like, it was like super minute. And so on all these things, and, I appreciate they obviously work with the details, but I don't think anybody, it just seemed like it was like, okay, we have no idea what you're talking about, because it's like, change the sentence from the to a, and we're supposed to know, what the consequences were. But anyway, so they talked about that. But I think the more interesting part, I think, was about the I-5 bridge, or more pertinent, about they're basically some folks from ODOT who discussed what the plan is and what is there's a big, it's a big process to build a bridge over the river. So they were talking about what they're planning, and they're going on all kinds of sort of the whole big plan. And people were saying, well, how much is it going to cost to go? We don't even know what this bridge is going to look like. So we don't know, we're doing studies, we've done questionnaires, we've got getting public information, and what do people feel is important? Like the most is congestion and safety, and then there are other things. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen those surveys that they sent out, but it was very informational, and it was it's a long process, years of analysis and EPA stuff and this, and it's a big deal. And so anyway, that was basically it. There were two sort of presentations in a nutshell.
All right. Any questions about the Land Use and Transportation Committee? All right. Anyone else have anything for the good of the order? Any additional agenda items that didn't make it?
Oh, I'll just pop in one more time to recommend that if people get a chance to watch the, and I'm sure there's another one this Friday, I think on the economy, the PDX City Club has been having their little State of the Blank videos noon on Fridays. They had State of the County, and then they had State of the City with Ted Wheeler and somebody. And then I think they're going to do State of the Economy next, unless that was last week. So I recommend watching those. And
City Club? Is City Club doing that, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you
City Club, okay.
And if you can't watch live, they record and upload it all to YouTube. So they're
You
pretty.
can listen to it on OPB radio as well.
Oh, there you go.
I was just going to ask if they still broadcast there. Yeah, Robert.
So the only thing I would say, generally at the end of a meeting, it's a good idea for the secretary to make sure if anybody's got a due out, that is something you're supposed to do between now and the next meeting, that we make sure we all know what we're supposed to do. I know that I'm supposed to draft up something for the Southeast Examiner and send it to Kim because she missed part of the meeting. And I know I'm supposed to email about Sam and any other board members that have been absent a lot, and we're going to keep them. And I know that I'm supposed to.
know if, is Chuck going to be involved or not?
Well, Chuck, I can't even
That's
email
another-
him. So, I think,
Right,
anyway,
so
we can talk about that, but
Sam and Chuck were the only two.
Okay, so I'll deal with that. And then the air quality, Greg is going to make sure that
Greg.
the gentleman is going to get a hold of us and tell us how we can be involved in that. So that's my 3 data.
Mhm.
Anybody else have stuff to, it's a
Yeah,
good
I need-
idea to make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to do.
I need to add Jules and Ross to our board email reflectors
Okay.
and to the website.
I'm gonna go get 5 people to sign up for our neighborhood newsletter.
And
I have a
Jules-
whole list of people that live around us that I could possibly, I'm gonna ask, but I'll sign them up. We have a huge email list. But question, with our new folks added, we have 13 members. And if Chuck and Sam are gonna be involved, then we're full. If Chuck and Sam aren't, then we still have 2 open positions. I just want to put that out there.
I had a quick question for Jules. For the newsletter, what is your deadline for content?
Let's see here. So the next newsletter will go out the April. So we have the meeting on April 20th next month. So ideally it will go out for April 13th. I would like to have all the content by April 8th. So I
Okay.
can design stuff and get it all suited up.
Linda, do you want to email me just a little blurb on what you're presenting next month? So we can put that on our newsletter?
Sure, be happy to. And by the way, how much time do you want allocated?
Oh, or I don't know. Greg, what are you thinking? Or CJ, I don't know who's putting the agenda together next
It's
month.
going to be CJ. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to
me.
miss next month.
Okay. So CJ, I mean, I don't know, how much time do you want, Linda?
Well, I can fill
I
up a
think
lot of
what
time.
and here's the question is, I think what we're
Sure, we can
looking for is
use
like
40
maybe,
minutes, But
okay.
I can tailor it one way or another.
I'm thinking we're gonna want more on creating an own personal emergency kit for your home. That might be something. You can say a little blurb about the net and if you're recruiting any new people. But I think mostly, for the community right now is being prepared for our own household. So if we can concentrate on that, I think that'd be helpful. That's
And
just me, but I don't know what the group is thinking either.
If I recall correctly, I thought Ross might have some materials about that as well, right?
I have some material that I've presented before to a group of college students about the Cascadia subduction zone, what it is, how we know about, some details about the geology, and then more about the impacts, the potential impacts to different, infrastructure or different households, different types of structures, that type of thing. And then there's some content about what the, how to be prepared, which would be potentially a good segue.
So we can make space on the next agenda for both Linda and Ross.
I would go easy on the geology stuff. I mean, people have gotten a lot of that here already. It's good to know it, but earthquake is not the only thing that you might need your emergency kit for.
Right.
There's all kind of other stuff. So I would concentrate, as Sarah said, on what you can do to make sure that for 3 weeks or whatever the recommended time is, you're kind of self-sufficient, in
Mhm.
water and food.
Like if there was an ice storm or a fire.
It could
those
be-
things.
Yes,
Water,
or a pandemic.
yeah,
I like that.
food, water and
Yeah,
basic stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I had to say.
All right. Go
So
ahead, Jules.
just one more. I wanna make sure that me and Keith and CJ have a chance to connect. So like 30-minute, 45-minute conversation about some communication stuff. Just let me know what your availability is. Maybe we could get together and chat.
Okay.
Thank
why
you,
don't you-
Jules.
Also, will somebody get back with Greg right after our meeting since he, froze out and just thank him?
I just did.
Oh, thanks, Greg.
Yep.
I think what he's doing is so exciting. So I hope we can do something,
cool.
you know, and thanks for volunteering, Robert.
Yes.
I have on my to-do list to coordinate with you about the Nextdoor group, and also I'll be setting up a YouTube channel, getting all of our videos put on there, and also coordinate with you about branding for the YouTube.
All right.
And Sarah's going to
Ready?
put all this at the end of the minutes, maybe, or at
Perfect.
least.
Anybody else have a call out about what they're going to be doing? All right.
Okay.
I think we can adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. It was a great meeting. And I won't see you next month, but I will be back in May.
Right.
See ya.